let's talk about why that video on Tragedy of the Commons matters. I mean, if you were taking my IR class, you'd have already watched this. So it's relevant in a lot of other areas. This is sort of the original Tragedy of the Commons. You'll probably hear about this in environmental classes and science classes and political science classes, whatever like that. But we're talking about the original version of it. So let's look at this. Early 1700s. So at the beginning of this century, most people lived in rural areas. They were farmers. They didn't live in I mean, obviously there were a lot of people who lived in cities, but most people, the majority of people lived in rural villages. And the way these villages sort of worked is the land is divided into privately owned and commons. So let's say that here we have sort of the houses of the village. Probably should have drawn this ahead of time. And then there would usually be like a common sort of in the middle, which was a shared space. And this shared space, the whole village sort of shared the space. And then obviously off to the side, you had your own plots. So this is this guy's farm, this is this guy's farm, this is this guy's farm, etc. But this is shared by everybody in common. And this is where you put, this is where you have the gatherings, but this is also where you put the cows. Let's see if I can draw a cow. It looks like a beetle. But anyways, that's where you put the cows and all that kind of stuff. So the commons was this area where the villagers kept their livestock here. Okay, so you'll note that the commons is sort of a set space. This is where the cows went. They would eat, the grass, not just cows, but sheep and other things like that. Now, what happens is we get this, like we were talking about, the population is going to start to grow. It's growing population. And things are, again, when I say growing income, I don't mean that people are just rolling in money, but they're a little bit better off. And a little bit better off, what am I going to do with that extra money? I'm going to invest in ways to get more money. So you have not only a growing population, so now we're going to have to add, each house here, they're still having the same amount of kids. Those kids are just living on. So the next generation, there's more and more. We can find farmland, but this commons area, it can only hold so many things, the tragedy of the commons. Villagers ended up buying more livestock, not only because there was more villagers, but also because they have this extra income, and why not invest it in something that's going to make money and make you better off? And of course, this all leads to the overuse of the commons. So as the 1700s is going along, the sort of relatively stable rural areas become unstable. The commons can no longer support all these people. So things are starting to go down a little bit in these areas. And probably the most likely thing is just packing up and going somewhere else. Where are you going to go? Two big consequences are going to happen as a result of this. Consequence number one is you're going to get a shift away from this commons idea that we all sort of share this in common to an enclosure system where we're going to enclose this area and we're going to parcel it out. Now, if you're going to have a cow, you got to put it on your own land. Enclosure, this is going to be now this guy's piece of land, this person's piece of land. And it really does change the nature of village life. We don't share something in common anymore. It's every person, every household for themselves. It does change how village life is. The second thing, of course, is that this just is going to end up with many villages ruined. As the common starts to fall apart, all those cows I bought, they die. They can't produce milk anymore, and now I just lost all my money. And I don't have insurance because insurance doesn't exist yet for individuals. And so, meaning I have to sort of move to the city. So that's going to be one thing that's happening to us. So a big demographic shift we're going to see is this sort of urbanization that's caused by this. Now, okay, that's great. Now let's shift to the cities for a second. So as this is happening all throughout Britain, and we're just talking about Britain right now. This is going to happen in Europe. This is going to happen in the United States. It's going to happen all over the world. And in the 20th century, it's going to happen to a lot of the third world countries that we talk about today. It's happening in Africa right now. It's happened in Latin America probably about 40, 50 years ago. China has been going through this for a little bit. And this shift. So things aren't working back home. Overpopulation back home. The rural areas can't sustain this. People move to the cities. Well, then there's the problem is the cities start to grow, but they start to grow really fast. So if you can imagine Point Loma, and let's say next year we're going to have an increase of 20% of students. However many students we have on campus, we're going to increase it by 20%. That's great for the university, except for the fact that where are we going to put those 20%? We have to build new stuff. Now, you could imagine by the end of the year or maybe by the end of the next year, the infrastructure's in place. There's new dorms, there's new sewage systems, all that kind of stuff, and we're able to house that new 20%. But in the meantime, where are they sleeping? Are they sleeping on, are we going 5 to a room now? Are we, putting people in the gym? Can the food system keep up with this? And then the next year we're going to grow by 20% again. And the next year by 20% again. Can a city keep up with the infrastructural needs of all this growth? And you're going to get tons of problems that are going to be very apparent. And these are going to carry over into the 1800s and honestly, even today when we think about cities of some sense. So let's just start with an easy one, smell. There's no garbage service. There's no indoor plumbing. If you're going to poop, you can't go out to the woods because there aren't woods. You're in a city. You're just going to go kind of in the street. That's where you're going to deposit the stuff. And it's not like someone's coming by to shovel that. And it's not like, there are pipes or sewer systems. It's just going to be gross. Another thing is going to be overcrowding in houses and in neighborhoods. Again, it's going to take a while as the city's going to grow, but it's not going to grow as fast as the population is going to grow. So where are these people going to go? So if I'm a landlord, I'll take my one room that I'm renting out, put a nice, curtain between it, and now I'm going to rent it out to 2 different families. And so people are going to start being crowded into houses and neighborhoods. And of course, in these situations, you're going to get disease then. Not only are you going to have poop in the streets and all that, you're going to have a lot of people breathing on each other, spreads quickly in these crowded areas. And then this is going to lead to other social problems as well, like drinking. Life kind of sucks. Where am I going to get clean water? I'm not really going to get clean water. So alcohol is going to be the clean water that I'm going to have my hands on. And it kind of relieves, it makes things so much nicer if you have to live in all of this right here. Violence is going to be a result of this, not only because people are sort of living close to each other, but also you add some alcohol to the mix. And as Jerry Springer showed us, violence is a result, and of course, crime as well, if I have to get by. These are going to be sort of the new realities for the average, everyday people. This is not just going to be dislocating for the people who move from the rural areas to the urban areas. For the people in the urban areas, as everything starts to grow, they're going to be in the midst of this as well. So that is the huge demographic shifts that's happening there. So now we're going to talk about classes. You're going to take a look at a video here, which is going to look at super fancy life. Obviously, most of the people in London are not living that fancy lifestyle.